We're going to work on the Project 5, the quiz show like I promised you. We're going to be doing it with the new Visual Studio 2015. So it's going to be a little bit different from your experience with the instructions for the 2008, and I wanted to show you how that works. So now what we're going to do is go to our File menu. We're going to point to New. And we're going to click Project. And now the kind of project we're going to be doing with the quiz show is we're going to be doing a console application. So we opened up Visual C++, we're under CLR, and we're going to go to console application here, and we're going to type in here quiz show. I'm going to call this quiz show 2 since I already have a quiz show. And I'm just going to take away this quiz show because I don't need two folders, okay? So that's all we need to do. And I'm going to click OK. So this should populate here. I'm putting mine on my desktop. You can put yours wherever you want. So I've clicked Finish to open this up. This has already given me some coding in here. I'm going to leave the stat facts here. I'm going to leave the namespace here, but I'm definitely going to be changing this because I'm not going to be doing a hello world program. I'm not going to be returning 0. I'm going to delete these. But my main clause is going to be void. It's not going to be int. I'm not returning anything, so I'm going to put void. And then I'm not bringing anything in this between the parentheses, so I'm going to delete all this between the parentheses, okay? So now, what we need, we've got our main project here, quizshow2.cpp. So I'm going to type in here what they told me to do. So my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a comment. Okay, so I clicked a line, a slash star. So I'm going to come on down, and I'm going to type in here, quiz show. Come down again. Click by Mrs. Hadley. So now I'm just going to kind of center this. So I click a couple here. So it's a little bit centered. There we go. So that's going to display between those two lines here, okay? Because it's a multi-comment thing. And I could put, you know, it's just the way you want to do it. I can just put another line in there, okay? This is not really doing anything. So now what we're going to do is we're going to include some libraries. So I want to put in here the IOStream library. So I'm going to put in right after the statfacts, because the statfacts has to be first. You know, pound include, and I'll put in here IOStream. And under that, I'm going to include the string library. I'm going to be using some strings. So I'm using the namespace system, but I also want to use the namespace standard. So underneath system, go using namespace std. It just saves typing. So now I'm going to go in between my void main clause here, and we're going to just do some fun stuff here. We're going to be making a title screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type C out with a bunch of stars and an end line. I'm going to be just put in here a blank thing. So I put a star, couple spaces, another star. I'm going to add more spaces later. Oh, you know what I need? Quotation marks, don't I? Right, if I'm doing strings, they need to be contained within quotation marks. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to see out by. I put another line in here. I'll just copy this one. Paste it here. I'll put my name in here. I'll come down another line and I'll paste it again. And I'll come down another line. I'll paste it again, and here we just put in a bunch more stars to match the top one. So now I'm going to kind of come out to about here with this one. The same thing with this one. I'm going to line up this one. Put before and afters around this one till I get centered. It's just playing, it's kind of fun. But you know, you guys can build your own logos when you have a company. So it's kind of nice to know how to do little stuff like this so that you can put your own personal signature on programs that you do, okay? Oh, you know what I can do? I can probably call this quiz show or something. I'll just copy this. We'll come up here and just type in quiz show. I'll just delete some. There you go. So play around and get something that you like, and there you go. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a question class. So under the line using the namespace standard, I'm going to add a few empty lines, then I'm going to define the question class. And under that I'm going to type class question. I'm going to add the curly brackets for the class. Now you notice it added automatically in a semicolon at the end. A class will always have a semicolon at the end. Inside my class question, I'm going to add some private variables to my question class. Each question object will have a question, 4 possible answers, an integer variable for the number of the correct answer, and the amount the user wins if they get the question right. So under the opening curly bracket for the question class, I'm going to type private. I'm going to add a new line under that, and I'm going to type string question text. So string variables are a little bit different from text variables, but we're not going to talk about that just yet. So I'm going to I've asked my question. So I'm going to have an answer that's going to be a string. answer 1. I have another string. It's going to be answer 2. Another string. It's going to be answer 3. And have my last answers, answer 4. You know, a test question usually has 4 answers, right? A multiple choice question does anyway. And now, one of these answers is correct, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4, so that's an integer. So I'm going to put int correct answer. And now they're going to get a prize amount, so that's another integer. And so that's pretty much, you're letting the person know how much is that question worth. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an instance of the question class. Oh, I've got a mistake here. See, I've got a little red thing here, so let me come on down. Okay, so I'm missing, oh yes, I'm missing a semicolon. That's why it's always good to pay attention. See, it went away. Because it tells you what's going on. You just hover over it, it tells you, hey, semicolon, dude, right? So I'm going down to the last thing after my last C out. And I'm just going to put another line here. Okay, so we're going to create instances of a question. Okay, we're only going to create one for now. We'll create more later on. I'm going to come down. I'm going to type question Q1. In the question class definition, before closing curly bracket, I'm going to add a public method. So I have a private method up here. Now I'm going to add a public one. I'm going to type void. This is not returning anything. It's set values. So it's not enough just to have the placeholder for the question. I also want to set the values in my method here. So I'm going to have the question, which is 1 string. I have 4 strings for answers, and an integer for the correct answer, and an integer for the prize amount. So I'm just going to go 5 strings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, int. And don't forget my semicolon at the end, right? So now I'm going to write a public method for the question class. Other parts of my program will use this method to store the question answers and other information about each question. So after the last curly brace in my program, I'm going to add a couple lines, and then I'm going to store values for the question variables. So under that line, I'm going to write void question set values. Now notice I put in 2 colons. Now you click here, set values. So you have a set values method, right? So what did we have? We had 5 strings and 2 ints. String will call the first string Q for question. So we'll have a second string. We'll call that A1 for answer 1. They'll do the same thing. String answer 2. Answer 3. And answer 4. And then we're going to have int correct answer we'll call CA. And our next int will be prize amount, PA. So now I'm going to add curly brackets for the method. Okay. So now I'm going to link up answer 1 is equal to A1, answer 2 is equal to A2. So I'm going to hook up these. And I've set the values here. Now I'm hooking them up down below, okay? So I'm saying answer 1 is equal to A1. Answer 2 is equal to A2. Answer 3 is equal to A3. Answer 4 is equal to A4. Oh, I didn't put the question up here, did I? Oops, let me put it up here. Question text is equal to Q, right? Okay, so we still need the prize amounts. Or actually, correct answer is equal to CA. Oh, yeah, I need the semicolon, don't I? There we go. And prize amount is equal to PA. So now I've got the method. I've said what the method is. And I've stated the method here. I've defined the method here. Now all I need to do is call the method inside my main, inside my void main, okay? So under line Q1, I'm going to type set the values of question instances. Give me a couple spaces here. Under that, I'm going to type Q1 set values. I'm going to say, what does C out do? Okay, my first answer, eject a CD for answer 1. Comma. Okay, so my second answer is going to be set text to a printer. Okay, my third answer is going to be print text on the screen. Okay, my fourth answer is going to be play sound. Okay, my correct answer is the third one, so I put in 3. And the prize amount I'm going to have is, say, $2,500. So there we go. There's our first question. Now, what's wrong with this? Well, it's kind of hard to follow, right? We've got a question, 4 answers, and 2 ints. You know what? It's easy for us to follow. It's not going to change the game any if we just click enters in here. So I'm going to click here. So this way we can be sure that we've got all our strings, right? Do you have to do this? No. But there you go. So you're sure. Okay, we've got the question here, and I've got 4 answers, a correct answer, and a prize amount. So that just helps me make sure that I've got everything in there. Can I do it all in one line? Of course. Putting enter in there doesn't affect everything. Okay. So this just makes your code easier to read. So just pay close attention to the quote marks and don't put a line break in the middle of the string. All right. So now we're in lab 3. So now I'm going to declare some global variables. So I'm going to go back up top, and I'm going to go under the using standard namespace. Okay. I'm going to declare a couple global variables. Global variable is a type of variable that can be used by any function. Okay, if you want to protect a variable, you declare it inside the class or inside the main function, but we want these variables to be available to any function. So we're going to call them globally. So I'm going to call this one an int variable, and I'm going to call it guess. And the next int variable is going to be called winnings. So we want the user to make a guess, and we want to add up his winnings, add up his prize amounts, and we're going to stuff it in a variable called winnings. So we're going to be using this in other functions. So now what we're going to do is we're going to declare a method. We're going to declare ask question method. So we're going to declare it inside the question class definition. So just before the closing curly brace here, after the set values method, I'm going to go to the end, I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to declare this one, I'm going to go void ask question. So this method uses global variables, so you don't need to pass variables to it like you did here, okay? Since we're using these global ones up here. Global variables are available for any part of the program to use. So now we're going to write the first part of the ask question method, and we're going to add code to this method throughout the lab. So I'm going to go down to the last curly brace in my program here. I'm going to add a couple lines, and then I'm going to write my ask question method. So I'm going to put void. It isn't returning anything. It says question. See, it belongs to the question class. So I have the 2 colons there. So I'm going to do ask question. So that's this method right here. All right. So I'm going to come to the end, click enter, and I'm going to add my curly braces. So inside the curly braces, I'm going to write the line ask a question, in case I'm wondering what I'm doing here. So I'm going to put a space in here, so I'm going to just go cout. It just puts a space in there, okay? So I'm going to type C out, question text, end. Under that, I'm going to C out 1, answer 1. Dot space. Answer 1. I'm going to go end line. Call this one answer 2. This could be question 2. It's still giving me errors. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to see out end line. Okay, what I forgot to do is I forgot to put some chevrons here. See, between this and the individual answers, you just want to put a number in there. That's what you're doing. You're adding a number, and then you're going to put whatever the answer 1 is, number 2, whatever the answer number 2 is, and number 3, whatever the answer number 3 is, and number 4, whatever the answer number 4 is. Okay? So now we've written the method, we're going to call the method. So in the back to the main function, I'm going to go up right here before the last curly brace here that we just did the question 1. So now we're going to ask the question. Q1, ask question. So now we're going to award the prize money. On the ask question method, just before the closing curly brace, we're going to add a couple empty lines and we're going to ask for a guess. So we're going to see out what is your answer. We're going to see in whatever the user guesses. So now, if the user guesses right, we're going to add the prize amount to winnings. So, right, it's either going to be true or false. So that's an if statement, right? If guess is the correct answer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to compare guess on the left to correct amount on the right. We're not assigning it. We're checking for equivalency. So we're using double equals. Correct answer. So now I'm going to add curly braces to my if statement. So what do you want to do if it's correct? So under that I'm going to see out you're correct. So under that I'm going to type winnings is equal to winnings plus the prize amount. So under that, I'm going to type C out, you just won. My $sign here. And whatever the winnings is. Put an exclamation point in here if I want. I'll put a exclamation point. Oh, I forgot that. I'll put a prize amount. Prize amount here. Now I'm going to put in total winnings, right? Put my $sign. There, this is where its winnings is. What if they answered wrong? So now I'm going to add code to tell the user they got the answer wrong and print their total winnings to the screen. So after this one, I'm going to write in an else statement. So I'll put in my opening and closing curly brace. See out, you're not correct. First I'm going to put an end line in here. And I put under their total winnings is still equal to. Put in here winnings. Put another space here. So I'm going to add another question. So I go back up to question 1 Q1. I go question 2 Q2. I come on down to set values for question 2. So I'm going to put in here, what's my question going to be? Which one of these is an integer? $14.75 minus 275.1 0.007 and 25. Correct answer is 4. The prize amount's 1,000. So under this, I'll do Q2 ask question. Oh, I put this above that. Two is enough to test our program for now. Save everything. And I'll just run this and see what it looks like. Okay, missing a brace. Come down to line 90. Okay, I need a curly brace down here. That's where it is. Let's try it again. Let me try a right answer here. Let me try a wrong answer here. Okay. So far, so good. So we're going to declare the high score and the high score name variables. I'm going to go to the opening curly brace of the main function. I'm going to declare my local variables. These are not global variables. They're only going to be used in the main function. First one I'm going to do, I'm going to declare high scores. Now I'm going to have 5 high scores. So 5 items. So now I'm going to have a variable that holds 5 names. This is going to be a string. High score names. There's going to be 5 of them. Who's the 5 winners? Now I'm going to initialize my local variables. To make my quiz show program more exciting, I'm going to create a starter list of high scores for people to beat. It would be too easy if the high score started at 0, right? So after the line string high score name 5, I'm going to add a few empty lines and I'm going to type a comment, initialize local variables. I've declared my local variables, I'm initializing them. So my first high score is going to be 25,000. We always start at 0. I'm going to copy this. I'll come down to the next line. I'm going to paste it. Now my next one's going to be high score 1, a little bit lower. We'll call that 12,000. Come on down. High score 2 is going to be 7,500. The third one, or the fourth one actually, is 0, 1, 2, 3. There's 4 variables here. This is going to be 4,000. My last variable, I'm counting 5. See, there's 5 here. Start with 0, go to 4. We'll call this one 2,000. So now I'm going to initialize my high score names. And my 0 name's going to be Gwyneth. Copy this one. Paste it down here. My second high score name is going to be Adam. The third high score name is going to be Natasha. Position 3 high score name is going to be Nicholas. And my last whole high score name is going to be Danny. So now, if I'm going to cycle through the scores to find out where your high score is going to fit, I'm going to have to use a for loop. So before the very last closing brace in the main function, I'm going to add a few lines and I'm going to print the high score list. So I'm going to see out high score list. I'm going to put another space in here. I'm going to type my for loop. I'm going to initialize it to 0. Start off with 0. We'll start at 0. And we're going to end it when I is less than 5. We're going to go through the list one at a time. So I++. Add my curly braces. I'm going to see out high score. Whatever the I is, put in a space here. High score name. I. End the line. Oh, wait a minute. I did this wrong. Int I is equal to 0. That's what it is. You gotta do it right. Sorry about that. In order for me to use a file, and I'm going to have this high score list as a separate file, I'm going to have to use my streaming library. So I'm come all the way up to the top. I'm going to add the fstream library. I'm going to create an output stream. So before the very last closing brace in the main function, I'm going to output the high scores to a file. So come here. I'm going to go upstream, output high scores. Output high scores open. Dot open. Okay, what are we going to call this? We're going to call this high scores text. If we open it, at some point we're going to close it. So we're just going to close it right now. We'll close it. So now we're going to add another for loop, and we're going to have it run 5 times. It's going to output all 5 scores and names to write the high scores name list to the text file. So between these two lines of code, I'm going to add a few empty lines, and I'm going to put my for loop in here. For int I, we have the I in here this time, right? Equals 0. I less than 5. Increment it one at a time. Of course, my open and closing curly braces. So I'm going to put in here output high scores. And whatever the high scores are. Of course, there's a little I in there, because we'll do them one at a time, and it will go up as we go. And the line. So I got an error code here. Let's go find this thing. Ah, yes, I put a comma instead of a semicolon. So under this, I'm going to put in here output high score. I want the names as well, not just the high scores. So I'm going to put a pause. Okay, let's run this thing. So now it should have built me this file. So let me go in my quiz show 2 and find this file. Here it is. See, it built me the file right here. Now that I got an output file stream working, I want to add an input file stream, so if I have a change in my high scores list, I can add it when the file starts. So I'm going to go back up to high score name 5. Now I'm going to input the high scores from a file. So I'm going to do if stream input high scores. Under this, I'm going to type input high scores open. And what's the name of my file? High scores text. So, of course, if I open it, I've got to close it. So in between here, I'm going to put another for loop. I initialize an int I to 0. I'm going to add me 5 scores. I less than 5. Then I'm going to increment I one at a time. I add my curly braces. So I type input high scores. High score. And put my brackets around the I. Also want the high score names, right? All 5 of them. One at a time. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize the high score for the value of 0. Okay, so if the high scores text file exists, this value is going to change. If the value doesn't change, your program will use the starter high list score. So after the string, after the high score name 5, add a few lines and initialize the high score at 0. High score 4 equals 0. So I'm going to find the line initialize local variables. So I'm adding it right here. Initializing local variables. So I'm going to check here if high score 4 equals 0. I'm going to check the left to the right. This is a true or false, right? Double equals. So if this is true, I got my opening and closing curly braces. I'm going to put all this in here. So I'm going to take this away. After Danny, I put in my closing curly brace. There we go. So if I don't have a file, so if high scores equals 0, no file exists, I'll make one. That's what this is all about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my code here. Open my high score text. I'm going to change this from 25 to 35. All I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in and I'm going to run my program. So it did change it. I changed it in the file, so it changed it here, so my program's working. So next thing I'm going to do is get the rank. If the user's score is high enough to get on the list, it'll figure out if they're 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, or the new high score. So under the line high score name 5, I'm going to type in here int rank. So I find the line, print the high score list. Above that list, I'm going to put in a couple enters. I'm going to check if winnings is greater than or equal to the high score. curly braces. So I'm going to add the comment, get the user's rank. I type another for loop. Int I is equal to 4. Winnings greater than or equal to. I'm going to add the curly braces for this if statement. I score I, right? My bad. That's got to be true, and there's something else that's got to be true, so I put a double ampersand in here. So both these statements have to be true. And I is greater than or equal to 0. Then we're going to go I 1 by 1, I plus plus. Minus minus, I'm going backwards. I'm going down instead of up. So inside my for loop, I go rank is equal to I. Semicolon. After this, I'm going to put in here, you got a high score. And of course, I end the line. So if this player's score gets on the high score list, you're going to need code that moves all of the previous players' names and scores one spot down the list. Now we're going to rearrange the list. If the player's score gets on the high score list, you're going to need code that moves all of the previous players' names and scores one spot down the list. So now we're going to add the code that will do this. So I'm going to find the code line, see out, you got a high score. So before that line, I'm going to add a few empty lines. Then I'm going to type the comment, rearrange the high score list. So underneath that, I'm going to type me a for loop. For int equals 4, I not equals rank, I minus minus. So remember, this for loop will only move those ranked lower than the current player down. The previous scores that are higher will stay where they are on the list. So I'm going to add a pair of curly braces. Inside the curly braces, I'm going to type high score I is equal to high score I minus 1. Now under that I'm going to type high score name I is equal to high score name I minus 1. So I go back to the line, you've got a high score end line. So now I'm going to complete the steps to store the new high score and put the name in the new correct spot in the high scores list. So I'm going to put a C out here, please enter your name. So now I'm going to type that C in, high score, name, rank. So under that I'm going to type high score rank is equal to winnings. So now I'm going to go and add some more questions to my quiz program. Now I'm going to go back up to question Q1. And I'm going to add some more questions. Copy it. Come on down. And we'll paste some. So what I did here was I copied the question 2 and made myself 2 more questions. So now I'm coming down here and I'm I've got question 1, question 2. And I'm going to add some more questions. And I'm just going to, I guess I can add 5 and 6 here. So here we go. So I'll just come on, do this line thing where I'll come on down. Make sure I've got enough answers here. I not have question 6 here? Oh, question 6. Pay attention to those wavy red lines, right? So you can ask whatever questions you want. It's your game, right? So now I'm just going to have me some more questions here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this will be 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now I've got 6 questions in my quiz. Now I'm going to save this. Click the Save All button. Now hopefully this will run right. Click Build It. So I just play the game. So I'm going to enter. I got a high score. Let me put my name. I'll put spaghetti. There you go. We're done. You're ready to turn it in.